You're live.
I'm live. Hi, everybody. Barry McGuire here for Barry McGuire's Creative Real Estate Education Group. It's the Monday main event, Monday, July the 12th. And speaking of our group, not sure if anybody else knows this, but Donna told me our group is having a birthday today. We are 1 year old today, and there are 2,000 plus folks out there just like you who are watching who are members of our group. So I'm pretty proud of that. That's for a nerdy kind of lawyerly real estate education group. I think that's pretty good to have over 2,000 people who show up and listen and are interested in creative real estate education. So happy birthday to us. So today we're going to do three things. We're going to just talk about our July 17th event that's coming up. Oh, just a second. Donna says, I have myself. I'm Barry McGuire. She says, Barry, every time you do one of those, there are people who don't know who you are or have never met you. So I'm Barry McGuire, real estate lawyer, 45 years experience. I run the Creative Real Estate Education Group with my sweetie pie, Donna, and we're all about helping people figure out what creative real estate is and how it fits into their real estate investing lives. So that's me. All right, so back to today. Today we're going to talk about our event coming up on the 17th of July, which is going to be all about, in a full day, explaining to people what creative real estate is and just what those strategies are all about. We're going to talk about and have a follow-up to a previous presentation that we did on raising capital, joint ventures, and the Securities Commission. How, if you're out of money and you want to raise some capital, is your local Securities Commission going to come down your neck and give you a hard time about it? And we're also going to do a follow-up on the segment that we had on insurance, because insurance is a big factor in any real estate purchase. And we just want to follow up on what was a very interesting session with Steve Hambley from Sadler Insurance. So those are the three things we're going to chat about today. And so let's just recap what's happening on Saturday, July 17th, coming up. So it's an all-day event. And it's to give folks some information on creative strategies such as rent-to-own, fix and flip, wholesaling or assignments as it's sometimes called, agreements for sale, and joint ventures on its own account and as joint ventures apply to all of those strategies. So that's the what of what we're going to chat about on July 17th. Who's going to show up at that event? Well, I'm going to be leading it along with our fabulous focus team. I don't do these things on my own. I know lots about the law and lots about investing because Donna and I have a reasonable portfolio. Plus, we continue to invest. But what we like to bring to those sessions is the deep in the trenches expertise of folks who have done a lot of investment on the creative side. And so coming along will be Andrea Workington. Andrea has, I think, close to 15 years of experience. She's done numerous agreements for sale, rent-to-own, assignments, joint ventures. She is now a licensed property manager. She is a licensed realtor. She's involved in some development work. Andrea is a going concern, let me tell you. And one of the things I love about Andrea is that she is just so good at talking to people in a plain, straightforward, understandable way that deals with issues and gets people to see a path forward. And folks, when Andrea talks, people do deals. So you definitely want to show up just for Andrea. But on top of that, we're going to have Neil Taniguchi. Neil is kind of like, what would you say about Neil? He's like butter. He's smooth. He's soothing. He managed a very successful Calgary BMW dealership, and I just can't imagine anybody wandering into the dealership and not, if they want to buy a car, and not buying a BMW, and they would do it because they wanted to do it, and Neil would show them how. Neil also has a ton of experience. He and his wife Linda have accumulated a portfolio large enough that they can winter in Mexico. Nice, huh? Winter in Mexico. Not during COVID, but other times they spend, I think, up to 4 months in Mexico. And how are they able to do that? Because their portfolio of investment properties have enough positive cash flow to allow them that lifestyle. Linda has retired from being a teacher, and collectively they run their portfolio. So Neil, like Andrea, has a lot of experience in a lot of different areas. We also will have Wayne Hillier and Deb Kennedy. Wayne and Deb haven't been at it as long as Andrea and Neil, but they both have a lot of experience. They both market to find clients. They have been successful at implementing, I think, all of the creative strategies, all of the 5 strategies. And lastly, but not leastly, for sure, we're going to have Sean Impey on. Sean worked in the business world for his whole life in the kind of project management end of things. Very smart guy. Has been investing for, I think, close to 20 years. And when he switched gears and moved out of the project management field, he is now a mortgage broker of renown. Sean is the kind of mortgage broker that you can take a creative investment deal to, or any deal. It doesn't just do in creative deals, but he's one of the few mortgage brokers that understands creative deals and how to finance them. I mean, when you're finished with a rent to own, or your tenant is coming out of their 3-year rent to own deal that you've put them in, and they need a mortgage, somebody has to explain that to a bank. How about an agreement for sale? Now you want to purchase a property that you got from someone else by agreement for sale. How do you explain that to the bank? Sean is very good and very helpful on creative and all investment properties. So Sean will be there as well. So that's who's going to be helping us out, and they're great to work with. You will love hearing and participating and asking these people questions. And by the way, we'll be answering questions all day long. You won't have to, wait till some particular time to put up your hand. We'll be answering questions. We'll have lots of sessions. All questions will be answered. That's our promise. So that is who's going to show up on the 17th and help out. It's worth it just to hear these people talk. I'm telling you. I could just let them go. I wouldn't have to say a word, and that would be a great presentation. I would like to do that, actually. Donna, why don't we just let our focus team run it and have me just sit in the background having a cup of coffee?
Not yet.
No? No. Donna says I have to show up, but no, I will. But seriously, they are that good. So where are we going to do this? It's going to be a virtual event. And when you sign up, you get an invite. It'll be on StreamYard as opposed to Zoom, but it's a good virtual platform. Works very nicely. We've done all our events using StreamYard. And, we are thinking of doing live events coming up, but we're just coming out of COVID, folks. So we're not quite to that stage yet. So this event will be virtual. And confirming it is Saturday, July 17th. I believe we go from about 8 until 5. 8 until 5. So it's all day with breaks. You're certainly going to get breaks for lunch and, get a coffee, etc. So all day event on Saturday, July 17th. And then the burning question is, why should you come and attend that event? Why should you? Don't you have something better to do on a Saturday? It's a beautiful summer. It's probably going to be a little bit cooler than it has been. The 30 plus heat will be down to 28. You could be out at the lake. You could be in your garden. You could be at the pool. Why should you show up? Okay, here's why. If you're an investor, and I think most of you folks are investors, creative real estate is a great supplement to buy and hold real estate. We love buy and hold real estate. A lot of my properties and Donna's properties are buy and hold. We recommend buy and hold. A lot of people don't do anything but buy and hold. But sooner or later, for most folks, even if you love buy and hold to death and that's all you want to do, sooner or later for most folks, they run out of qualification room. Under the financial rules, you can only get so many mortgages before the banks say, sorry, you don't qualify anymore. And that can be as few as 3 or maybe 4 mortgages, which isn't very much. Depends who you are and what your financial circumstances look like. But sooner or later, you won't be able to qualify, and you have to do something else if you want to buy more properties. So, by the way, you can use creative strategies to acquire buy and hold properties, although that's not what most people do, but you can. So not only is it a supplement to buy and hold, it can be buy and hold in itself. But it allows you to continue to buy property and to do deals and to not have to go to the bank. Typically, you don't have to go to the bank. You find people to be your bank. That sound attractive? Are you at the stage where you're having trouble borrowing any more money, but you still want to do more deals? Well, creative deals should be for you, because for most of them, you don't need a bank. What about if you have money? I mean, you have down payment money, but the bank won't let you qualify. It's got to be frustrating if you've got 20% to put down on the property and the bank says, no, by the rules, you can't get a mortgage anymore. But on the other hand, you might be in the circumstance of you can't qualify, plus you don't have deposits and down payments. You don't have very much money to put into new properties. You want to acquire more, but you don't have very much money. So you'll be happy to hear that we explain, and we'll explain on Saturday, how many of these transactions using creative strategies can be accomplished for little or no money down. Little or no money down. In fact, some of these deals, sellers pay you. Yes, you heard that right. In some of these deals, sellers pay you to take a property off their hands. So I'm just working on one deal right now where the value of the property is about $160,000. It's a little condominium here in Edmonton. And I know you people in other parts of Canada are going, $160,000? What can you get for that? Hey, Wayne.
Hey, am I here?
Yeah, you are.
How's it going?
It's going well. We're just into talking about the why people would be interested in showing up on Saturday and hearing about creative strategies. And we're talking about the fact that you might not be able to qualify for mortgages, and you might not have very much money to put into deposits and down payments, and that there are little or no money down deals. And I'm just getting into an example of where a seller is paying you to take the property off your hands. So it's not
I had one
money down. Wayne had one. So I'm gonna talk about an example, and then I'm gonna get you to talk about your example. So sure. In this example, it's just a little condo here in Edmonton. It's $160,000, but the mortgage on the property is $175,000. $175,000. So our creative buyer has negotiated with the seller that on closing, the seller has to write a check to the buyer for $15,000. So the mortgage is $175,000. The value of the property is $160,000. Seller pays buyer $15,000. Now the buyer is getting the property at the market value of $160,000, and he's going to use that $15,000 to do a little bit of a reno, just a tiny bit of a reno, and pay some of the negative cash flow. And he's got this property on for 2 years till the end of the term with a 5-year renewal. So he'll have this property under control for 7 years, which he believes will give him lots of time to watch some equity increase, mortgage pay down, and the seller's paying him to take the property off his hands. How about you, Wayne? What's your example?
Very similar. There was $160,000 left on the mortgage, but we negotiated a purchase price of $155,000. So what we negotiated with, we didn't actually have the seller cut us a check. We had the seller make a $5,000 payment directly towards their mortgage balance, which brought their outstanding balance to $155,000. So we bought it for what they owed. So we got into that for zero money, and then we had a 5-year agreement for sale with a 5-year extension on top, so 10 years total.
Nice. Yeah, and so folks, that's another thing that you will learn is that when you're doing deals like this, when sellers are in the position of the two sellers in Wayne's example and in my example, those sellers are in trouble. And what we're looking to do is find creative solutions to sellers' problems that turn into a win-win deal for both the seller and for you. That's what we're looking to do. Mm-hmm. And when sellers are in have the kind of numbers that we've just been talking about here, they will usually be very cooperative with what you need. And if what you need is a long period of time where they're your bank, it's certainly easier to negotiate that with sellers than when they have a whole bunch of equity in the property. So that is another reason that you should show up and learn about these creative strategies, is because you can buy properties for little or no money down, or even get a check written. That's pretty rare, but it happens. Mm-hmm. What else?
What's a really cool thing about that particular deal?
What's
I
that?
also brought a joint venture on that one too.
Excellent.
Which obviously what we're talking about today, the joint ventures. I brought a joint venture on to cover the cost of the renovations. So we did renovations and increased the value of the property and then rented it out. So I gave them a share of the profits.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that wasn't even on my list to talk about, Wayne, but it's such a good point that, we should say that when we talk about these creative strategies, our 5 basic strategies, you get to often string them together. Mm-hmm. You get to, buy by way of an agreement for sale, get a joint venture to come along and put up some money to help you do something with the property. And then maybe you exit by a rent to own. So these creative strategies are like little building blocks, like Lego blocks. You kind of click them together in various orders where they supplement each other. And so we'll hear about some of that on Saturday as well. Some other examples, which will be interesting for you. I guess the next thing is that where buy and hold is a circumstance where you're really waiting for a property to pay you. You're paying it off over a number of years. You might get a bit of positive cash flow in each month, at least hopefully you should be. With a lot of these strategies, they're what we call rapid cash strategies. And in fact, one of our focus workshops is called the Rapid Cash Program, because we go through all the strategies over 2 or 2.5 days and all the details that tell you how it works. So buy and hold gets you a payoff at the end generally, or a bigger payoff at the end. These strategies give you money now, which you can use to do more buy and hold properties if that's what you need, is more deposit money, or use it to supplement other aspects of why you need cash in your daily life. So you'll find out why these are rapid cash money today rather than money 25 years from now when your buy and hold property is paid off. And I guess, Wayne, and you can speak to this, one of the biggest things that we talk about, and one of the, I think, most attractive notions about creative real estate, is that we often end up helping people that are in trouble, people with problems, people who don't know what the heck they're going to do. And so what we like to talk to people about is why you should be a problem solver, and how being a problem solver in a win-win way can be just extremely rewarding. Is that a fair description of how we go at it, Wayne, do you think?
Absolutely. I don't think there's any better business than a business where you can help people along the way, right? Business is I mean, you're selling products or you're providing services, but if you can create a business where you can help people out of situations and be profitable at the same time, I mean, there's nothing better than that. I love it. I love you were talking about all of them and mixing them together and stuff. That's my favorite. You're just finding a solution, for their problem and making a business out of it.
Yeah. It's just kind of magical that because people end up understanding what these strategies are, they recognize opportunities, and then they can solve problems for people. That is, it's the biggest kick I get in my law practice, on a daily basis when I figure out what people need and what solves the problem and moves their life forward. So that's what I do all day long. And I know it just gives me a big kick when you work your way through and everybody's happy, a win-win solution. So, all right. So that's kind of a summary of what's showing up on Saturday, July 17th. I will talk a little bit more about it later, but right now, Wayne, we're going to get back into kind of a follow-up discussion to what we did on securities. We had a discussion on securities, and just want to do a little recap, I guess, of raising capital. So we talked about raising capital, and that happens to people. You buy a property, you buy 2, you buy 3, you buy 4, you can't buy any more.
Happens to everyone. Unless you're loaded.
Yeah.
Unless you're loaded, you're going to run out of money and financing.
That's just the way the financing rules work. Everybody will run out of money sooner or later. Some will be quicker, some will be not as quick, but you will run out of money. So if you still want to buy property, then you got to find some money. You got to find some people with some money. And so what folks think about is, okay, you know what? I'm good at this. I'm going to set up a website. I'm going to set up a program. I'm going to devise my own program where I'm going to invest in real estate. I'm going to explain to people how they can participate with me, and they will give me money, and we will buy property. And so that's what people think. So,
but
saying but here. So as soon as you get away from some of the exemptions that you're allowed to do, the various what are called securities commissions in the provinces, because they're provincially regulated. In Canada, I believe we have 13 securities commissions, which is lots of people say the worst idea ever. I mean, why don't we have a federally regulated securities commission? I think in the U.S. they have a securities commission that covers all the 50 states and various U.S. territories. They don't have 50 of them for all the 50 states. But we have provincial securities commissions, and they govern how it works when you're asking other people for money. So the classic thing that you do is if you've got an idea to raise money, you have to file something. You have to file something, prepare and file something called a prospectus. And that is a hugely complicated document where you need the assistance of lawyers and accountants who specialize in securities work. It's vastly expensive, hundreds of thousands of dollars to do an appropriate prospectus. Then there are some kind of light versions of filing a prospectus. You can do an offering memorandum. You can use LLPs, limited liability partnerships, with an offering memorandum. And that's an exemption to normal securities rules. Those are also very expensive, and not quite as expensive as a prospectus, but also expensive. Maybe in at least probably $50,000 to $100,000, maybe more. But there are further exemptions to that. So some of those exemptions are you can deal with accredited investors. Those are people who have a lot of money on their own. They've got a lot of net worth. They've got a lot of they have a $300,000 worth of income every year. They're supposed to be sophisticated people who understand what you'd be talking about and able to protect themselves. So there's accredited investors. There is close friends and business associates that you can work with. But lots of people run out of those. You might have gone through all your close friends, your coworkers, and your business associates and your relatives who will listen to you talk about investment real estate. But that is an exemption. Crowdfunding. There's a crowdfunding option, which on review doesn't let you raise enough money, but it is there. There's a private issuer exemption. There are a number of exemptions to that giant prospectus that costs so much money. The thing of it is, all of them are regulated.
Yes.
In all of them, you have to fill out forms and go through hoops. Some lots of hoops, some not so many hoops. Some are fairly expensive, some not so expensive. But you got to spend money and jump through hoops for all of the exemptions. So what a lot of folks do is go, you know what? I'm just going to put it out there that I have some real estate that people might be interested in, and I'm going to tell them my story about real estate and see if somebody wants to jump on board and invest with me. So that's what they do. Now you're getting yourself into uncharted territory. The typical way people do this is they set up a website, they explain who they are, and essentially, what they want is they want money. They want people they don't know to read what they say on their website, get the picture that they're reliable people to give money to, and then they'll gather in money and do the investment. So, can you do that? Can you do that? The Securities Act is a huge legal document. The definition section runs to, I think, about 100 different things that they define. The thing that a real estate joint venture is probably defined on is in the Securities Act is something called an investment contract. An investment contract. And it shows up in, are you ready for this? Section 1 bracket GGG. There's section 1A, section 1B, section 1C. This is section 1GGG. That's how many subsections there are. And according to the cases that we've read, that we're going to have a little legal talk here. I know everybody's desperately interested in legal cases and precedents, but I got to talk about some of these because they're the ones who talk about what you can do and what you can't do. Right. In any event, an investment contract is what you will likely be doing if you're in a real estate joint venture. Now, the investment contract is not defined in the Act with any certainty. So it's over to the courts to figure out what constitutes an investment contract. And the Americans have led the way. They always seem to kind of be ahead of us on some of these slippery slope things. There's been a couple of leading cases in the U.S. where in the case of the Securities Commission in Howey, the court determined that there are 4 elements to prove the existence of an investment contract for securities purposes, known as the common enterprise test. And, they say there's an investment contract, a common enterprise, the expectation of profits, and the key item, profits that result solely from the efforts of another. So you put your money in and you're depending on someone else to make money for you. So that's the common enterprise test. In the case of Commissioner versus Hawaii Market Center, the court said, let's talk more about whether capital is at risk here. So we now have the common enterprise test and the risk capital test. And where the first 3 things are kind of the same as the common enterprise test, in the risk capital test, they said that the person putting the money in doesn't get the right to exercise practical and actual control over the managerial decisions. So, no practical or actual control. Under the common enterprise test, the analysis depends on the quantity of the investor's participation and their control. Under the risk capital test, the analysis depends on not the quantity, but the quality of the investor participation and control. So those two are that's the US. Following along in Canada, various courts in North America, they pay attention to each other. So we pay attention here in Canada to what the US says. But in the case of Pacific Coast Coin Exchange and the Ontario Securities Commission, the court was looking to see whether a particular contract was an investment contract governed by Securities Act. And they endorsed both the common enterprise test and the risk capital test from the States. They said, both of these tests can apply, depends on the circumstance. But what they said was they thought you need a broader approach, less kind of rigidly legal, and a broader approach to determining whether an investment contract existed, which would be governed by the Securities Act. And they said that in their view, it is clearly legislative policy to replace the harshness of caveat emptor. And you guys all know caveat emptor is buyer beware. So it's legislative policy to replace the harshness of buyer beware in security-related transactions. Courts should seek to attain that goal, even if tests carefully formulated in previous cases prove ineffective. So if the common enterprise and the risk capital tests don't really work, the court should broaden their scope, and they say it's the policy and not those rigid tests that should be decisive. And the policy is we're trying to protect people here, and so we're not going to be as rigid about the application of the tests. So as a result of that leading Canadian case, in Canada, Canadian courts and tribunals can determine whether an investment contract exists by using either the common enterprise test or the risk capital test, but neither test is decisive, and the investment contract may exist even if the elements in both of those tests can't actually be satisfied, because they say broader policy goals, including consumer protection, call for a court to determine that a joint venture is an investment contract and therefore subject to securities regulations. So, as you can tell, this is vastly complicated. The courts have gone at this a whole bunch of times, but when you get right down to it, what are some of the things that if you run into trouble and the Securities Commission bangs on your door and says, "Hey, we've been looking at your website and we think that you're selling investment contracts," and you go, "Whoa, not me. I'm a simple real estate investor. These are merely joint venture agreements. These aren't investment contracts. Why pick on me? I'm just a little guy." That's what you'd say, right, Wayne? I know you'd say that. Yeah, why not? Yeah. So what are they going to look at? They're going to, here's some criteria. You're the promoter. You're the the working partner. You're the guy looking for money, and the courts will look at whether your representations, not in the contract itself, can be evidence that it's investment contract. So all of the blather that you have on your website and all of the conversation you might have are representations that might, despite what your actual paperwork says, take it out of what you say and put it into being an investment contract. The expertise and experience of the investors. So the less experience your investor has, the more likely an investment contract exists. Whether the investors are getting legal or beneficial interest in the property or only getting a proportionate interest in the profit. So if somebody's getting a percentage of profit, that's way more of an indication of an investment contract than if they're actually going to be on title. And I know in lots of joint ventures, the investor is the person going on title and mortgage. So that would be a point in your favor. Whether the investors have any say in the management and control of the business and its affairs. A lack of investor management and control is evidence of an investment contract. So there you go. You want to draft something up that meets Securities Commission rules, but you're pretty sure that your money partner has not a clue about anything on the real estate side of things. And so you're going, okay, should we say that all the decisions are going to be 50-50? And I really can't do anything without talking to my partner. Most investors don't want to give up that much control, but
Right.
Keeping control throws you into the realm of it being an investment contract rather than a non-regulated joint venture.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Donna says to me that there is a great video on the Alberta Securities Commission website.
I'll post it.
That she will post. She'll post a link to it, all about how they look at these kinds of deals, and in their own words, they'll tell you what they're looking for. So that'll be a useful video to watch. And the amount of securities language in the joint venture agreement. The more securities language, which is very specialized language, by the way, the more likely it is to be an investment contract. So we have an example here, the case of Ree Wong, a couple of sisters, Wong and Sue, bought lands in Alberta, in Wheatland and Rocky View counties, which they wanted to develop, subdivide, and resell. So they promoted those things. Wheatland, they said, was more developed, and they told investors there'd be a quick turnaround on profits, and they wouldn't have to do anything beyond making their investment, and that the investors wouldn't have any say in the developments of the land. So as you can tell from the last things we just talked about, already the Wong sisters are kind of offside. The joint venture agreement said that the sisters would make every management decision with respect, except for major decisions which required a majority vote of 65%, and major decisions were decisions related to the sale, mortgage, or final use. The Securities Commission determined that both of the joint ventures were securities because they were in fact investment contracts. They modified the common enterprise test from one of the previous cases. They focused on the economic reality of the overall promotion of the ventures instead of the joint venture agreements themselves. So that is part of what we talked about previously, is what are you as promoter saying to people? The language in your agreement might say one thing, but what did you say when you were explaining to people and promoting your event? The commission focused on the sisters telling some investors they didn't require any further action from them beyond paying their subscription amounts. And therefore the economic reality, remember we're looking at reality, not just black word, was that investors were led to expect profits from the efforts of the sisters or the people that the sisters hired, and not from their own efforts. So I have another case here, but it kind of goes at it the same way. This is one that had a lot of securities language in the document, and he just couldn't meet the common enterprise tests. So got a last case, fairly recent one from 2017 from Ontario, when a promoter named Tulsiani admitted to the Securities Commission that his joint venture was an investment contract. He bought properties in the US and then promoted them for sale in Canada. When he was promoting and selling, he assured people that through his efforts and the efforts of property management companies, he had everything in place, everything set up. Properties were turnkey for 1 year. He promised several investors. He made different promises to different groups of investors. He promised some investors that all they needed to do was invest their money, and the property management company would take everything else, renovations, repairs, getting tenants, paying taxes and insurance, and that they purchased investment properties in the US through him for two main reasons. His properties were turnkey and because they trusted him. And so he was hammered pretty hard by the Ontario Securities Commission for selling investment contracts without regulatory authority.
Is that the
So-
one that's Snowden?
Pardon me, Doug?
Yeah.
Edward
Yeah.
Oh, Edward Snowden. Yes. Snowden showed up, and that was hilarious, on one of his webinars as an invited guest, and then outed him as a guy who was in trouble with the Securities Commission. It was hilarious. It was absolutely hilarious.
Hilarious.
Well, I thought it was hilarious. Wayne
I'm
is
not.
killing himself here.
I'm laughing. Yeah.
Yeah, killing himself.
Okay.
Anyway, so folks, after all of that, I guess I'm not sorry it's so legalese because I'm a lawyer and some of these things are legalese. But it is a little bit dense. So let's get down to, what can you say or do to avoid being subject to securities regulation? So you have to weigh what you think you want and need against the rules that you have to follow. So if you don't want to be regulated by the Securities Commission, you have to, number one, fit yourself into one of the 10 exemptions, which probably 5 are relevant. And you can see those on the Securities Commission website and in the video that Donna will post. Can you fit yourself into one of those exemptions? Or are you going to allow your investors to acquire legal and beneficial ownership in the property? And I think the most important was, are you going to allow your investors to partake in the management and control of the joint venture in a substantial and meaningful way? And I think that's the tough one. I mean, you're looking to set things up to go in a way that you understand and will work because you have experience at doing this, and you're working with somebody who has no experience. Are you going to pass over effective control to them in order to not be subject to Securities Act regulations? It's always a dance.
Barry, don't apologize, by the way.
Okay, I'm not.
Don't apologize, because I'll be honest with you, and you probably know this, but nobody else talks about this. Every other joint venture course, capital raising course, webinars and everything, it's all about OPM, raising money now. Let's get the money in the bank and let's buy lots of properties. And no one stops to think about that there are rules behind this, and they're very important. And you might get away with it for a while. You might raise a bunch of money for some U.S. properties, but I mean, next thing you know, you got Edward Snowden outing you on your live webinar, and you're in big trouble, and you can't raise money anymore. So it's okay. You got to make sure you know the rules, and you got to understand the rules of the playground. But if you do it right, there's plenty of opportunities, plenty of people that are looking to invest in real estate and doing it the right way. Yeah.
So you're right, Wayne. You're right about all of that. We should talk about these things, and then we can talk about the practicalities of it all as well. One of the best defenses for you, no matter how you go at this, is to make your joint venture just a roaring success. Mm-hmm. Do what you say you're going to do with your venture. Report. Set it up and run it, and make sure it operates and achieves the way you said it was going to. Mm-hmm. The best venturers take on way more probably than what their joint venture agreement says they're going to take on. They never ever bother their money partners about anything unless they absolutely have to. They make it run. They provide solid reports as they said they would provide, quarterly, half yearly, yearly. And they make sure it's a success. There is probably, a 99.999% chance that if you've worked with someone and you have a very successful joint venture, you're never going to be in trouble with the Securities Commission because you're never going to be reported. So if you're doing those kinds of private ones that don't show up from a website where they're not pursuing you, mm-hmm. You're probably not going to have any trouble that way. And I guess on another practical note, securities commissions are government bodies. They regulate us with a huge Securities Act, and they themselves are regulated. They're government guys. They're 9 to 5. If they reach out and search and look at websites and actively look for people who they believe are selling investment contracts disguised as real estate joint venture agreements, and I know the British Columbia Securities Commission is particularly active in that regard. But even if they reach out and do this, the likely result is they get in touch with you and they say, hey, Wayne, you got to stop selling stuff on your website. You're selling investment contracts. And after you explain to them why you're not and You go back and forth, and they insist that you are. I mean, what they will say to you is, you have to stop doing that or else. And the or else is that they will take further action against you, to the point of taking you to court and getting the court to order you to stop. But that's not their first. That's not their first thing they do. They contact you, say why they think you're doing something offside, give you a chance to explain why you think it's onside, and then if you can't agree, they will say to you, well, you got to stop doing that, or we're going to carry on with further enforcement action. So I believe almost always you get a shot at either corrective action, if what you're doing is correctable, so that you can meet Securities Commission requirements, or you get a chance to exit that way you're raising capital without them taking the further action, which is fines and or court action. So I'm not promising you folks, don't go away and say, Barry said we can really do what we want, but we'll get a chance to get out of it. I mean, they'll give us a second chance.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that's what I believe that they will do. And so if you're going to set up a website and market and try and attract money, you can't rely on Barry saying, oh, well, they'll tell you, give you a slap on the wrist and tell you to quit. That's likely, but not certain.
Yeah.
So that finishes my presentation of Securities Act
question.
Things.
I have a question.
Question. Okay, Donna says there's a question. Donna, are you going to put that up so I can read it?
Trying my computer.
Trying.
Get her here.
We're all looking here.
It's
it
provincial.
Oh.
Which provincial securities law apply if the property's in Alberta but the joint venture partner is in Saskatchewan? That question got answered when we did the last one, and I think it was the opposite of what I said.
Oh, good.
Yeah. You know what, Jorge?
George.
George. You can, if you can, take a look at the last item we did, the last time we did the Securities Act, the first part of the Securities Act presentation. And so I know we talked about it in that one. And it was opposite to what I thought. It looks like there's another question. How to start with a joint venture, like a person who got a house at minimum wage in this market, a good deal, done a wholesale and connected with a good network to get deals in the city. Now the thing is how to get money, JV partner, how should it be divided? I'll be getting a good deal, 70% ARV. Reynolds with my connection as GM, general manager, manages it as well. Maybe we'll ask their help in Reynolds on ideas. How would you recommend to proceed? Also, I'm just 21 years old, so sometimes it's hard to get serious attention. Yeah, and that's not fair, is it? Folks look at you, and because you're young, they go, well, what do you know? And maybe it is fair at 21 and you're just getting started. So, your question is, it's kind of a giant question. I don't know that I have an answer to that. Wayne, do you have something that you think might be useful for that previous question?
Well, there's a few questions in there, and I'd start off by saying, it's great that you're starting at 21. Most people wait till they're. Can you hear me fine? Oh, you muted yourself. Yes. Most people, they wait till they're 30 or in their 40s when, when they've got a kid or they start a family and they realize, no, I got to take control of my life. So I applaud you for starting at 21. And you got a good deal. So it's a great place to start. Now it's just a matter of just finding someone who could benefit from you bringing that deal and your expertise. It is going to be the cards are stacked against you when you're younger. It is what it is. They were stacked against me when I was 25, 26. Best thing to do is to really just get out there and start talking about real estate and letting people know what it is that you're doing, letting them know that you were watching this webinar, letting people know that you were at the workshop this Saturday, letting people know that you're reading this book about joint ventures. Just let people know, and then they'll see it, and then their trust will be subconscious. They'll trust you more without you having to prove it. You know what I mean? They'll just know that you're the real estate guy. And then, over time, what you'll do is you'll leverage your other deals and leverage your success. So by doing more deals, people are going to see that, and then they're going to trust you. Best way to find people is to talk to your family and friends. You don't got to create a website and create a, what do you call this, prospectus and all that other stuff. No, just talk to your friends and family. Find people that already trust you, let them know about the opportunity, and see if they want to get in on it. And maybe your first deal, you might have to split the responsibilities or split the money. Maybe it's not the best deal, compared to what other, seasoned investors are doing. But, your first deal, just get one done. And Barry calls it the one damn deal. Just get one done. The experience that you'll get from that, the money that you get from that, you'll be able to take that and to do more. As for, I'll be getting how to get the JV partner, how should it be divided. Standard division would be 50-50, 50% for the person that brings the money and the financing, 50% for the expert. Now, you may have to accept a little bit less on your first deal in order to just get that first damn deal. But, you should be able to do at least, 40% and 60% for them or opposite. It's all negotiable, but don't quit. I see lots of people in their early 20s that are getting lots of success. It's just you just got to stick with it, and if you get a no, go ask someone else and keep asking, and then eventually someone will believe in you and trust you, and you'll get that first deal, and then you'll be surprised. The people that said no before might come back later on in the future once they see how much you've done.
That's good, Wayne. I think a couple of other things. You certainly want to. You certainly want to be a success on your first one. You're 21 starting out. You want to make sure that you're successful. So it looks from your question that you've got a pretty good chance. But try and be a little bit more conservative in your first one. Ask lots of questions of mentors and anybody else that you can ask questions of. Education is so important. You get most of it by doing deals. You get lots by doing deals. You get lots by taking courses like our focus workshops. But still, you got to do one damn deal, and you want to make sure that your first one is good, because if you flop on your first one, it's going to be hard to talk to other people about giving money. If you have your own money and you're doing your own deal, and you are at risk and only your money is at risk, well, if you don't do it right and you lose money and it's a failure, well, you only have yourself to answer to, and that's certainly a good learning experience for you. But just don't do it with other people's money, because your best key to success about doing one deal and carrying on and doing more deals is that you do what you say you're going to do. People make what you say they're going to make, and the property in the joint venture is successful as you say it will be. That, doing one or two of those, people that will give you all the money you need if they believe you can do deals. So make sure your first one's a big success, or at least not a failure. Don't be a failure on your first one.
Yeah.
I think that's all we got for that one.
Someone asked if this there'll be a recording of this live. Yeah, you can find it in this Facebook page if you want to just scroll down and find it later. I mean, the easiest way to find old videos is to go through YouTube, on the channel on YouTube. That's the easiest way to find it. You can search specifically for this topic.
Yes, and folks, just by that question, when somebody asks, will I get this live recording? It's important for everybody to know that all of our sessions are recorded and all available. And we've had a lot of them, and there's lots of great ones. So everything is available, and YouTube, as Wayne says, is the best place to get it. All right, so I'm going to move off from questions and on to Deb's got to run. Thanks, Deb, for being on. Deb Kennedy, who's going to be with us on Saturday, July 17th. So I'm going to move on to insurance. So we did a big session with Steve Hambley from Sadler Insurance not that long ago, a few weeks ago. And one of the things that Steve talked about is that we are in what he called a hard market cycle right now. Insurance vacillates in cycles between a soft market where insurers will insure anything and they're fighting for your business, to hard market cycles where it's harder to get insurance. And that's where we are right now. And what Steve talked about is that because of bad claims experience, poor claims experience, insurers are examining what they insure and how much they charge, and they are doing various things. So insurance is a data-driven business. It is absolutely based on data. Insurance companies collect information from every policy that they write. I believe they trade information back and forth amongst each other. They look at provincial experience. They look at country experience. They look at worldwide experience for various kinds of risk exposure. And they're constantly adjusting their policies to fit what they think their risk exposure is. So just taking Alberta as an example, we've had very bad floods and very bad fires and very bad hailstorms in various parts of Alberta over the last while. I think of the 10 most expensive insurance events in Canada in the last 5 years, 6 of them have been in Alberta. I don't know that stat is exactly right, but Alberta is leading the way in expensive insurance events. So, on the hail side of things, I think if you're in Alberta's hail belt, which is probably maybe from Red Deer south, Calgary had a couple of terrible hailstorms last year. Shelley Visser posted some pictures of a house of hers in Northeast Calgary. The vinyl siding was shredded. It was absolutely shredded. I mean, it's now in the hail zone in Alberta. I think very difficult to get hail coverage, or if you get it, it's a huge deductible. And that comes out of insurance companies' claims experience. They paid out, I think there was $1 billion worth of hail claims paid in Calgary. And that wasn't the damage that the hail caused. That was just the insured claims that were paid out. So there's likely $5 billion worth of damage and only a billion insured. But that caused the companies to raise deductibles. And some of them just said, we're not providing hail coverage anymore. Same with properties and areas that are subject to floods and fire. The same with other, and those are kind of big macro comments. Yeah, so we get it. If in an area of the province there are devastating fires every year, you can see why an insurance company might want to insure against those fire-related events. But they also are looking at more micro things like older wood frame apartment buildings. I'm not sure what exactly older means, but I think probably in the 25 plus year range. There are quite a number of insurance companies that have exited insuring the older wood frame multifamily buildings completely. So that where there were 15 companies that would write policies, and your insurance agent would be able to put your bid out to the 15 companies, and you could get a decent price because they were bidding for your business. Now I think there might be 1 or 2 companies that are writing those kinds of policies, and the premiums are higher, the deductibles are much higher, and the coverage is lower. So, generally speaking and overall, my comment on insurance is that we are in a hard market cycle. And I strongly suggest that if you are writing any kind of a deal, I don't really care whether it's a 3-bedroom bungalow in Southwest Edmonton or a high-rise in Calgary or a 24-suiter in Lethbridge. I don't think it matters. I think you need to know it's a hard market cycle in the insurance business, and that you need to protect yourself by making certain that you can get your property insured. So what are you going to do about that? I think in every offer you write, every offer to purchase that you write, you should add a clause that says, and I wrote it down here, it's actually a short clause, subject to insurability to buyer satisfaction. Subject to insurability to buyer satisfaction. So when you say to buyer satisfaction, that makes it a subjective comment and not objective, where if you could just get an insurance policy with somebody who would charge you 5 times what they charged last year, the seller would say, well, you could get it insured, couldn't you? Yeah, well, at 5 times the number. So subject to insurability to buyer satisfaction. Add that into your contract and then talk to your insurance agent about the property and whether or not you're going to be able to get insurance that, for instance, won't throw your positive cash calculations into negative territory. So that's just a little word to the wise, but that's the way the insurance market is. You need to protect yourself. You can do more investigation. There's lots on the net written about this hard market cycle and what happens. Do go back and listen to our session with Steve Hambley, because Steve is an expert. He owns an insurance agency and he knows lots about this. And he was a great guy to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's insurance for today.
Wayne has a hockey game.
Wayne has a hockey game he's going to.
Oh no!
And it's 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock.
I got time if you need to finish up. Yeah, I'm good.
All right. So in finishing up, folks, I'm just going to go back to reminding you that Saturday, June 17th, we're going to do an all-day session where you're going to get. I added it up. I added up the kind of the hourly rates of all the experts that are going to be on there. If people are getting coaching from you, Wayne, or from Andrea, probably about $1,500 an hour worth of experience that you're going to have all day long to answer all of your questions about creative real estate. What actually is creative real estate, and how do you recognize those opportunities? And we really want you to understand those strategies so you can recognize opportunities and decide whether or not you think creative real estate is for you. Do you want to learn more about it? Do you think it fits with you and your investing plans? Do you want to just be a buy and hold person? You never need it? Great, no problem. But if if you're interested in purchasing more properties and you've kind of run out of qualification room and you're interested in really widening the number of properties that would be available for you to look at, then show up on Saturday. Yes, you have to pay some money. Wayne, it's $187 for the whole day, and I'm hoping that folks will think that is real value for the focus team that's going to come along. I'm going to be there, and at the end of the day, you should be able to make a decision about whether or not you want to get more involved in creative real estate, and you should be able to see the really wonderful opportunities that are there to make some money and to help other people on a win-win basis. So that's why you should tune in, show up, and sign up for Saturday, July 17th. And Wayne,
yes,
that's all I got.
I just want to add in as well that it wasn't too long ago, 2016, I took my first course with you, Barry, and yeah, I didn't know anything about creative real estate. I knew that I was out of money. I knew that I was out of money, and I didn't know how I was supposed to find the next partner, and just that whole idea of, well, maybe I could try buying houses with no money. And I remember that it was the AFS intensive course that I took, and since then I don't been to lots of courses, but what I learned from these strategies, I mean, it's hard to look back and think how I could have possibly gone forward with my real estate investing without learning this stuff, because everything that I do now revolves around it. Everything, like you said, like I was listening when you were introducing, Deb and I, but like literally I use every strategy, in a creative way. And I mean, like I left my job last year and, created a business that's revolving all around these different strategies. So I'm like extremely grateful to you and Donna, that. And I just want to share with other people that, it seems a little intimidating at first. And for $187 to get access to all of the different, 5 strategies, to get an introduction to it, it's peanuts, it's pennies. Highly recommend it. And that's why I love coming back, and I love talking about it, and I love coming back to the focus workshops and just helping other people for them to get the same thing that I got, and hopefully change your life.
Well, nicely summarized. Nicely summarized. It's certainly overall the folks we've taught. I think we're up around 500 students who have taken courses. They all kind of say what you say, Wayne, that you've got to get your education somewhere, and you can learn it by paying a whole whack of money out of your pocket and making mistakes and losing money, or you can show up and take a course that tells you all about it and moves you along quickly and smoothly and efficiently with all the tools you need to be a success in creative real estate. So that's what Donna and I try to do. I know it worked for you and 499 other people. So, okay, folks, there you go. That's all we're going to say on that. Saturday, July 17th. Hope to see you then. And I guess at that point, Wayne, we're signing off for the night.
Thanks for having me, Barry.
Thanks for helping out, as always. Good night, everybody.